Welcome to the Philosophemes channel. In this episode, we will discuss the idea of fetishizing the canon. All right, so as we can see from this image, fetishizing the canon commits the logical fallacy of psychologizing. We saw that this is a kind of genetic fallacy. All right, so what is the meaning of fetishizing? Also, what does it mean to accuse someone of fetishizing the philosophical canon? How is the belief that the canon can be fetishized psychologistic? Lastly, how does such an accusation function for the accuser? And you can see here that it opens the door for whimsy. I'm going to discuss each one of these points, but it opens the door for whimsy. It excuses from knowing the canon, and it trivializes merit and duty. All right, so what is the meaning of fetishizing? As you can see here, to fetishize is to make something the object of a sexual fetish. Also, to have an excessive and irrational commitment to or obsession with, for example, the philosophical canon. So perhaps the most common use of this beyond sexuality is the phenomenon of commodity fetishism. Namely, the masses purchase items sometimes motivated by a magical belief in the power of the item. So for example, if one wears that lipstick or if one sports those shoes, then one will appear and be treated by others as special, as if endowed with some magical power by way of purchase, possession, and exhibition, or the purchase, possession, and exhibition of the commodity. So you can see, if you just think of this in terms of the philosophical canon, and instead of some item such as lipstick, for example, then you'll be able to see what is meant by fetishizing the canon. All right. It is actually highly instructive to consider Walter Benjamin's comments regarding authenticity and the social function of art. And I recently put together a seminar on Benjamin's The Work of Art in the Age of Its Technological Reproducibility. And so I'd been looking at this text anyway, and I thought, it is actually quite valuable to consider this here. So let's take a look at this passage. According to Benjamin, he says, "But as soon as the criterion of authenticity ceases to be applied to artistic production, the whole social function of art is revolutionized. Instead of being founded on ritual, it is based on a different practice, and that practice is politics." So this is precisely what has happened to philosophy at the universities. Just think the trajectory in reverse. Once the conferring of Doctor of Philosophy was no longer sacred, but political and profane, then it was only a matter of time before philosophy at the universities became inauthentic. So if anything is being fetishized, it is the authority of the business, otherwise known as the university. And that will make sense here in a moment, but basically, what I'm saying here is that if the conferring of the Doctor of Philosophy degree is no longer sacred, then it is no longer rooted in the tradition of those who, for example, watch over and are the stewards and guardians of the philosophical canon. Once that's gone, right, then the idea is that what is it that confers the title of Doctor of Philosophy? What authority, if not the philosophical canon, and if not the tradition that oversees the philosophical canon? And of course, the answer to that question is politics and the university itself, the business of the university, the politics of the university. So what does it mean to accuse someone of fetishizing the philosophical canon? So to accuse someone of fetishizing the philosophical canon is to suggest that their adherence to the philosophy contained in the texts of the philosophical canon is based on some psychological reason rather than the value of that philosophy, right? There's a significant difference there. It is not simply one of the biggest sins against philosophy because it ignores the canon. Rather, it falls into that category by believing that the truths of philosophy are not independent from psychology. How is the belief that the canon can be fetishized psychologistic? And of course, this passage comes from the recent episode that I put together on psychologism. This quote from Karl Stumpf, I believe, "What we call critique seeks to free knowledge from all psychological foundations, and we call psychologism the reduction of all philosophical research in general and all theories of knowledge in particular to psychology." In other words, this belief that the canon can be fetishized, it fails to appreciate or honor the following kind of truth. Whatever 2 + 3 equals, I'm not saying what it equals, I'm just saying whatever it equals, the answer doesn't depend on how anyone feels about it, whether someone is confused or not, whether someone is attractive or not, no matter what your gender may be, no matter what your age, no matter where in the world you live, no matter what your net worth, and whatever your theology may be. Yet, without appreciating or honoring that kind of truth, it's not even possible to do philosophy. Otherwise, at best, one may be doing some sort of textual montage based on some political or self-preference. So how does such an accusation function for the accuser? First, it opens the door for whimsy. This is how universities justify holding classes on things like the philosophy of fashion and taking money from students to enroll in such courses. Those courses may be fun, they may be informative, but even if it were philosophical, it is for no purpose that will benefit the students. Any incidental benefit, like knowing how Plato felt about pants, is trivial at best. Though both the university and the professors gain from such courses, financially for both and narcissistically for the professor. Now we're looking at the second response, that it excuses from knowing the canon. So when a psychologist, and I really mean this, by the way, when a psychologist doesn't know the answer to a question, they tend to respond to the question with a question. They say, "What do you think the answer is?" And most unsophisticated people don't even realize that the so-called expert just dodged the question. In all sincerity, it seems to me that they dodge these questions primarily because they don't know the answer. So one way to not have to dance around not knowing philosophy is simply to change the topic. That is, stop doing philosophy, which means stop working the canon. So that's the second. Here's the third. How does such an accusation function for the accuser? It trivializes merit and duty. When the American Philosophical Association says things like, and they do say these things, right? Says things like, universities should hire, insert your favorite socio-political category here. And notice, I'm not picking on any socio-political category. I'm not picking on any socio-political category because every socio-political category is fallacious in this regard. So it doesn't matter. I don't have to do politics. I'm doing philosophy, right? So again, when the American Philosophical Association says things like universities should hire, insert your favorite socio-political category here, they are saying that category is more important for holding the position of philosophy professor than is knowing philosophy. Yet, what is it that a philosophy professor is supposed to be doing if not teaching philosophy? If there is some assumption that all philosophy professors are sufficiently the same because of what they know, then what is that knowledge if it is not the canon?